Good evening. This is the Village Council Public Workshop. The date is March 27th, 2024. The time is 7:30. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by posting on the bulletin board in Village Hall, by mail to the Ridgewood News, the Record, and by submission to all persons entitled the same as provided by law of a schedule, including the date and time of this meeting. Roll call.
Mayor Vagianos.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Perrin.
Here.
Councilmember Reynolds is not here. Councilmember Whites is not here. And Councilmember Winograd.
Here.
Will you all please join us in a salute to our flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we will go right to the public comment portion of our meeting. Anyone? No? Okay, we have a couple of people on hybrid access, so we'll go to them. Ellie, you're up.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening, Ellie.
Just want to say, Ellie Gruber, 229 South Irving. The council majority applied to SHPO to allow the 2.4 acre artificial turf field, cutting down trees, impacting a neighborhood. You hired an expert, stated he was so qualified, there was more than an 80% chance the field would be permitted. Your hubris was really unbound. But instead, SHPO sent a 4-page response, and here are some direct quotes. Not yet technically and professionally complete and sufficient, no clear narrative, only a collection of newspaper articles, lacked a unified, coherent, and cogent statement of purpose. Your information is fragmented and incomplete, and in some cases lacks sufficient context for evaluation. Your map key is illegible, the scale is inadequate, your alternative provided lacks the level of detail and analysis required for the scale and scope of the proposed park. There's no analysis of available locations. The archaeological survey documents are technically deficient. Your appendix does not contain the information cited. Does this sound like the work of an expert? Are these just minor changes that can be fixed in 2 weeks, as council members have said? You say that you're going to submit soon, and this is simply a request to resubmit. I think they're telling you your entire document needs to be redone. Please let us know how much we've paid and how much more you'll be spending. Keep in mind that in the 15 months that you have been in the majority, you could have been planning and constructing a mid-sized field agreed upon by the sports group, the neighbors, and the council. The children could be playing by this summer or maybe the fall. But as it stands now, with resubmission, further testing, it's going to be way over a year. Sure, you can resubmit, redo, make no maps, have a wetland study, do more ground testing, but what does that benefit the children? This is just an example of your total disregard for and disdain for a neighborhood. I beg you to go back to the original plan and save us all more money and time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ellie. Stanley, you're up.
Good evening, Council. My name is Stan Kukulka, 500 East Saddle River Road. I just have some questions. I saw the letter from Keith to the Army Corps of Engineers about the flooding situation on Saddle River Road. I was just wondering what's the next step? Do we have a meeting scheduled? I know last, 3 weeks ago, it was mentioned we would have a meeting with the town and also residents. I just kind of question where we are at right now. I haven't been to the meeting in a few weeks, so that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Stanley.
Thank you.
Seeing no one else, I'm going to close public comment. And I just have one Short comment. Ellie, when you refer to the original plan was the plan that the fund administration had, which was to build a full-size field with lights and a full-size baseball field. The plan after that was from the Aronson administration, which was to do the same thing. So one of those would be the original plan. I think you're referring to the one that was done in 2016, but I just want to get that straight, that the original plan was to build far more than this council ever anticipated. So, and I don't know if anybody else has any comments?
Yeah, I have a few. One, I want to clearly state there is no council majority. I ran as an independent. I am an independent thinker. My positions are my own. Two, the plan that had the smaller side field, and I understand it's referenced, always was costed, benefited, was turf. So we still have that as an issue. Additionally, even if we had received approval, we have some outstanding issues that we're following up because of the neighbors and the request, the archaeological, the berm. So on top of that, I want to say, because it's been the topic this week online, this was not rejected. It's a clarification. I'm incredibly pleased that after 15 years, this council, all 5 of us, have brought it further than prior councils. The prior council had not 1, but 2 rejected plans that were not publicly disclosed. And additionally, this has not been rejected, and it's an opportunity for us to provide more information to SHPO and more information to the public. I also want to be clear, I've been making jokes. Mayor Vagianos' detailed letter, from my read of the application, was the statement of intent. Maybe it was a little long because he covered 15 years of owning a property. I still give it an A+, Paul.
Thank you, Siobhan.
But that was the statement of intent from my read of it. I'm not happy that we have to clarify more. You know, it's going to cost more money, more effort. But I am happy that every step with this application has been within the public eye and that it wasn't rejected, because this is not a rejected. I see this as an opportunity to add added information and let the decision makers who we've ceded our authority to at Trenton make it. And that's it. I just also want to say thank you very much to everyone on our staff who made it happen. And, you know, clearly I would have hoped for something else, but I'm very proud of what we did, and I'm very proud of that the public understands it. So that's all I want to say.
And in that vein, Siobhan, you know, transparency, I know that there's been some discussion about our transparency. The moment that letter was received, it was put on our website. That's why everyone has it. The people who are calling in tonight are calling in on hybrid access, which the last council denied and voted against, and that's why we have it here tonight. And in fact, in that vein, I had closed public comment, but I saw Denise had raised her hand just after that, so I'm going to allow her to speak. So Denise, you're up.
Mayor, thanks for letting me get in here tonight to speak.
Absolutely.
I think I've been asking for a few sessions now about an update on the master plan. Some of the things that we've executed, interested to see where the historic area near Paramus, which was recommended in the master plan, is actually going to be implemented. I think, Pam, you were going to get some list and circulated on what the town's been working on and what they've done. And so I'm really just kind of looking for an update on that, because it's been over a year since we executed the master plan. And I don't know if the public really knows what the next steps are or how we're executing against them. And I know the recommendations, but I think a lot of them we certainly want to adhere to and move towards, because it's about what our town is going to be like in the next 5, 10, 15 years. And we spent a lot of money on that. The second thing about the response from SHPO, I do think that the tone of the mail response was more, I think I think, overwhelming in my opinion, as far as basics that's missing, like the requirements, like the purpose, like the analysis on the field and how many kids to the field ratio. I didn't take that as a tweaking. I thought there were some, as I said, foundational things that needed to be addressed. And maybe it wasn't rejected, but it certainly was returned with, 4 pages of feedback, which again seems like a lot. So look forward to the next round, and I know you guys do share, what you're working on and the details, so appreciate that. And that's it, but thanks for letting me speak, Paul.
Absolutely, Denise, thank you so much. And with that, I'm going to close public comment.
yeah.
No, you can respond, by all means.
Denise, yes, we have been working on the progress that's been accomplished in the master plan. We do that when the planning board meetings have been canceled, but we've had various delays, starting with the event that happened at the Parks and Rec meeting in January, and we need certain information from the Parks and Rec Conservation Board. We also are at the point of needing to interview every director, just about, because we are up to the element that is the chapter on community facilities. And so I have spoken with the fire chief, and I still need to speak to the engineer in our department, our chief engineer, and I have met with Keith. And so there's a lot of work to be done just to catalog what we've accomplished. I was hoping to get it done this spring. I'm still hoping to get it done this spring so I can make a presentation to the planning board and to the village council and let everybody know what progress we have made. But as we go through it, it's pretty amazing what we've accomplished so far, and I look forward to letting the public know about it. Thanks.
Thanks, Pam. And with that, we'll go to the manager's report, and I know Keith has a report on where we stand with our SHPO application.
Thank you, Mayor. So I actually think we'll start with that subject this evening. On Friday, we received the much-anticipated response letter from the State Historic Preservation Office regarding the Shedler application. While the letter is dense, and I'll certainly acknowledge that, when you boil down the requested information, it is not nearly as significant as one might think. This is a standard and typical response from the Department of Environmental Protection. While this is my first SHPO application of this magnitude, I can tell you that I have been the recipient of correspondence from the DEP for the last 22 years, and this letter is not out of the ordinary across divisions at the DEP, whether you're talking about soil, whether you're talking about wastewater regulations, stormwater regulations. These types of responses are very, very typical from the Department of Environmental Protection. So just to summarize, there are essentially 7 items that need to be addressed in the letter that we received on Friday. SHPO is looking for us to include the Friends of Zabriskie Shedler House, the Friends of Shedler, and the Sons of the American Revolution as interested parties, and we will include them on all future correspondence on this application. That's item 1. Item 2, they're seeking a concise project narrative. As Councilmember Winograd indicated, while the village felt that the mayor's letter in the original application provided this information, we are in the process, as we speak, of creating a concise summary to meet that request. SHPO is also seeking a field facility use and alternatives analysis, which Parks and Recreation has already gathered the majority of that data. You'll remember a few council meetings ago, I reported out on some dated data with regard to participant levels in the various programs that utilize the fields, both on the village side and the Board of Education side. That information is in the process of being updated. As a matter of fact, all of our sports organizations have submitted their latest statistics as of this morning, and that report is being circulated. So that will be the primary amount of data that will be incorporated in this analysis. SHPO is seeking participation from sports organization, team statistics for each organization, including field usage, how flooding has impacted the usage, and an alternatives analysis. This will be compiled and authored by Suburban Engineering, who has done many field analysis reports for other municipalities. This will touch upon the activities in our parks and on our fields that are not athletic related as well, which have an impact on usage, and which by our director, Nancy Bikos' estimation, accounts for about 30% of the overall use. And those are non-athletic programs. So that's going to be incorporated in the analysis that's going to be undertaken by Suburban. The SHPO letter also requests that items relative to the restoration of the Zabriskie-Shedler house be removed from the application, including prior professionals, letters of support, and past OPRA requests. And I have to tell you, that was one area that I was a little perplexed by, because in one area of the letter, they're asking us to include interested parties when it comes to Zabriskie-Shedler house, but at the same time, they're asking us to take components of that piece of the park development project out of the application. So that was a little confusing, but again, SHPO is SHPO, and if that's what they're asking us to do, that's what we're going to comply with. Additional correspondence between my office and SHPO, along with an updated budget and expenditures report, will be provided. They've requested a letter of interpretation from the DEP on the wetlands issue. The village felt strongly that based upon the initial archaeological results from Grubb and the DEP mapping that currently exists, that a letter from Chris Rudeshauser, our village engineer, was enough to substantiate where we stood with wetlands. However, SHPO has requested that we move forward on an LOI, and Chris is preparing a letter making that request, and we'll work on that with Suburban as well. And finally, which is a separate and distinct work effort, and interestingly enough, probably about a week before we received this letter, I had reached out to Dr. Marklepool at SHPO and asked her if we could move forward with whatever still needed to be completed on the archaeological study. She indicated to me during that phone conversation that SHPO was going to respond both on the application that was submitted for the park development project, but also at the same time respond to the archaeological feedback on phase 1. I was a little surprised by that because in my mind, they were two separate work efforts, but that's the way they chose to respond in one comprehensive letter. So we're still looking at the archaeological study as a separate work effort. It just happened to be included in the response on Friday. So with that, SHPO is requesting that a phase 1B archaeological study be conducted by Grubb Associates. We've already been in touch with the principals at Grubb who are moving forward with submitting their scope of work to SHPO to get authorization to finish the 1B archaeological piece. And then from there, once that's completed, we will request from SHPO to move into a phase 2 archaeological study, which we fully expect is going to be necessary. In summary, those 7 items out of a 1,200-page application which need to be addressed will only strengthen this application, especially the formal field use analysis that will be compiled between our Parks and Recreation Department in cooperation with representatives from the school district staff and Suburban Consulting. While we recognize that this is a highly emotional issue here in the village of Ridgewood, I want to say that the mischaracterizations of this letter, which has been a part of online chatter this past weekend, and quite frankly reported in media outlets, these mischaracterizations are simply that. At the end of the day, SHPO has requested certain pieces of information. We will fill in the blanks, and we completely plan to be able to resubmit by the middle of April. Again, this is a very typical response from the Department of Environmental Protection. So what is the path forward? Well, today we held a meeting with key professional staff and professionals. Each of these items was discussed and everyone was assigned a task. Our plan is to revise the document and submit it again by the middle of April. We will then request a special meeting of the Historic Sites Council once again to hear the application, and we expect that will occur sometime later this spring. I hope this provides a complete explanation of what was said in the letter from SHPO, at least from the village's interpretation of that document, and we plan to move forward with our action plan in response. So that is where we are on that. Mayor, I don't know if any of the council members have any questions relative to that topic before I move on with my report.
I don't have any questions, but I do want to comment on your state of affairs here, because as many of you know, I was in a former life a Deputy Attorney General with the Environmental Prosecutions Task Force, and I worked very, very closely with the DEP for a number of years. And this type of granular response from the DEP is absolutely not atypical. And as Siobhan pointed out, and as you pointed out, there's been some mischaracterizations of this letter, which this is not a denial by any means. This is a request for additional and more specific information. Unlike when the prior council, the prior administration submitted applications, they were denied on a couple of occasions. So, you know, and I want to remind everybody, the reason that we did this, that we voted to put in a full-size field here, is because we don't have enough fields. There aren't enough fields in our community. On a good dry day, there aren't enough fields. I will remind everyone that spring of 2022, all the municipal fields were closed for 2 months. It sent all of our sports programs and all of our other programs into a state of chaos. This year, several of our fields have not opened for the beginning of the spring season. That means that 2 out of the last 3 spring seasons, we have not had enough fields because of overuse and flooding. And for those of you who remember, when we talked about doing this, it was because of the flooding situation. I don't know that I have ever seen, or I have ever in my mind been having enough vision to see what would happen within just a few months. Because as everyone knows, in the last 6 months, we have had 3 major floods that have put, I think, 4 of our 5 major fields underwater. We have a community of children, adults, seniors who use these fields on a daily basis. The proposed field at Zabriskie Shedler is on high ground. It is not in a floodplain. We need this. Our community needs this. The thousands and thousands of children, seniors, and residents who use our fields need this desperately. I will remind everyone, the only reason this property was purchased was to put a field on it, a full-sized turf field. And for those who have questions about the turf, every plan, including the 2016 plan by the prior administration, included turf. The only difference between that plan and this plan is asking for a slightly larger field. That's it. And we know that this is what our community needs and wants, and so we will provide SHPO with the additional information that they have requested, and that's all it is, a request for additional information.
And Mayor, just by way of example, we have talked at this dais before about the SHPO application that's currently before their office on the ADA pathway and the additional parking on the stone gravel lot at the Zabriskie Shedler house. When Chris Rudishauser first submitted the application for approval, he submitted the short form. They denied him, simply to put a gravel stone path between the ADA ramp and the gravel parking lot, and to allow for use of the gravel parking lot so people can access the house. That was denied, and he had to do the long form. Frustrated he was, and he let me know it, but he had to submit that long form in order to seek this approval that we're looking for to get the certificate of occupancy for the house. That was an outright denial. Whereas the letter we received on Friday, again, I like to use the word dense to describe it, it was not a denial, nor was it a rejection.
As you said, there were 7 items they requested additional information on. They're very particular. That's not a bad thing when it comes to protecting our environment. We respect that. We're going to accommodate them.
So-
Could I say just a couple things? Sorry. One, I think it's very important to note that this is the first time for everybody up here, Keith included, applying for a SHPO application, because this has gotten very serious. When I was a citizen seeking information from the prior administration, I used to write SHIPPO, and I was like, what the heck's a SHPO? Thinking hippo. And then I found out what it was. That was 5 years ago. So get ready, online jokes. I truly said that. It's a first for everybody, our new manager, new council, and I think it's a good thing. But that being said, in all this discussion, I'm not building a field. As the parks liaison, I'm building a park. And when we have these discussions, I think the only 2 points of controversy that are there are the size of the field and the turf. Everybody else allegedly wants the house. We've spent $2.6 million on the house. And when we have these conversations for us up here and the community, it is disheartening to me that we never talk about it. It's disheartening to me that, and I'm going to do whatever SHPO wants, and thank you to them, because it wasn't a denial, and I'm grateful for that. But from the point of the taxpayer, the number one most important thing we do here is manage the budget and have a fiduciary duty. We bought that land. We asked Bergen County to give us money to develop a park, and it's been stuck for 15 years. We put $2.6 million into a house that everybody wanted, and now no one will come to the table. No one, literally nobody. And without the parking lot, the house can't be opened, and we're stuck in a situation. Additionally, there's other things there that are beyond the field. There's a walking path, there is a playground, and there's bathrooms, and those are all good things. So I hear the public, and I don't want to focus on all those other things, but we're not talking about this house, and that's a huge concern for me. And until the parking lot and the easement into the park is created, nobody can get into the house. And that should be something that the whole community, in person and online, agree, that's a missed opportunity. Missed opportunity for a park and to integrate the neighborhood. So that's all I wanted to say. I'm sorry, I probably just said too much. We've been talking for a long time, but I did want to say thank you to Keith, and I do want to highlight, I'm not afraid to say this is the first time I did it, and I'm grateful that it wasn't rejected, and I think we have a path forward. So that's it. If anybody has any ideas for the house, any ideas, please let us know.
And Mayor, I'm just going to make one closing comment on this and then move on with my
And then
report.
we'll move on.
With your permission. And I just want to say that, my job as the manager is to implement the policies and the decisions that are made by this village council. And that's what's happening here. And I also want to point out, and this was a discussion at our meeting this morning on this topic, SHPO is going to make recommendations to the Historic Sites Council. That is actually who the hearing is before. It's not before the office, it's before the council. And the council has a narrow scope in which they can consider the criteria for approving or denying or making further recommendations for this application, for any application. And it's going to be based on the historic aspects of the site, which we all know are really centered around the architecture of the house, and secondly, the encroachment on the property, which is registered as historic. And we acknowledge there's an encroachment, hence the need for the application that we submitted back in February. Those are the criteria that they are going to consider. Now, I understand and I totally respect all of the opinions that have been shared in this room since I arrived here last summer. Some I agree with, some I don't agree with, but my opinion doesn't matter because I'm only here to implement the policy that the current village council has directed me and my office to do. So that being said, I just want to be clear that the scope is very narrow. And I acknowledge the fact that there are debates over turf, there are debates over the size of the turf field that's being proposed, but it should be noted that just down the street on Goffle Road, over in Passaic County at Goffle Brook Park, that is a historic park. There is a historic house, the Ray House, that sits on that property. Not 50 feet from the Ray House is a full-sided baseball field. And just down the other way on Goffle Brook Park is a full-sided turf field. It was controversial. The Borough of Hawthorne actually sued the county commissioners over that property during the SHPO process, and during the Historic Sites Council's hearing, and ultimately ended with the commissioner of the DEP having to opine on what direction that project went, and ultimately it was decided that the field could be built. But turf fields have been approved by the Historic Sites Council right down the street in Hawthorne. We know that they've been approved at Hinchcliffe Stadium in the city of Patterson, which I don't think you get more historic than the history behind Hinchcliffe Stadium. So again, I just want to point out to the public, and I think this is a really important point, the scope of the decision-making of the Historic Sites Council is very limited in nature to criteria that they have to opine on.
Great. Keith, thank you so much for your comprehensive report on that, because we want everybody to know all the things that we are learning every day about this process.
Okay,
Continue.
so we have some good news. First of all, I want to thank Congressman Gottheimer for coming to Ridgewood yesterday to announce with the mayor and the deputy mayor and representatives from nearby mayors and councils of a $178,000 appropriation to support our Safe Routes to Schools program here in Ridgewood. That $178,000 will be allocated for engineering, review, and design for additional sidewalk projects throughout the village that will connect families and students to our schools. So we're looking forward to working with our consulting engineer and with Chris Rudesheiser's office to make that a reality. And we still have funding available from a 2016 grant to implement some of these sidewalk projects, so we're looking forward to that. Secondly, we met today, I know Stanley spoke about this during the public hearing, we met today with the United States Army Corps of Engineers. To say it was a productive meeting, I think would be an understatement. We went through, we shared with them the steps that we have taken while we were waiting for Colonel Young to authorize the engagement by the Army Corps. We received that letter back dated March 12th. The Army Corps will be shared all of the data collection that we did recently through the flood portal. I want to thank Neil Gallone over in our water department for helping us put that information into our GIS mapping system. And our GIS folks and the Army Corps' GIS folks are already talking this afternoon about how to transmit that data. We had 105 submissions into the flood portal. And again, all that information is going to be shared with the Army Corps. What it comes down to is there are two programs that the village will be able to consider being a part of. One is a more long-term study. It's called a general investigation study that we would need to seek a federal appropriation to conduct through the Army Corps of Engineers office. I can tell you that we have already applied for WRDA funding, that's Water Act funding, through Congressman Gottheimer's office to start that process even before we were able to receive the green light from the Army Corps. This is a long-term planning project for significant flood mitigation throughout the village. And again, to set expectations, the general investigation aspect of this is years in the making. This is not something that's going to happen next year or the year after, because not only do we have to conduct a study, which needs to be funded by Congress, but then if there are there is a construction aspect of it following the study, that also needs a congressional appropriation for us to be able to pursue. So we are going to do that, but in the short term, there is a technical assistance program, which the Army Corps will come in and meet with us and meet with the Board of Education and the school district representatives, and we will evaluate short-term projects that are affordable and can be undertaken by either the village or the Board of Education to protect homes and village and board infrastructure. So we are looking to pursue that in the more immediate future. We are going to fill out a request for contract document with the Army Corps in the next couple of weeks. We can be up and running with a study on the technical assistance program because there is funding available through the Army Corps already in place for us to pursue this. But this could be up and running within 6 months. So we're looking forward to that. Dr. Schwartz was at the meeting today from the Board of Education. They have already engaged at the Board of Education level with an architect and engineering firm to start talking about these issues in-house, and that firm will be able to work in tandem with the Army Corps once we have this program set up. So this is all good news. We have some short-term actions to take. We have some long-term actions to take. We had a representative from Congressman Gottheimer's office in the meeting this afternoon with the mayor and the deputy mayor and the Army Corps, and we're looking forward to pursuing this aggressively. We did make an ask of the Army Corps that they come in late spring, early summer, and have a forum with our residents to be able to explain what these programs mean, how they can hear back from the residents so that there's open lines of communication about how flooding affects residential properties in the village. And we're tentatively looking at, for some time, the first week of June, the first or second week of June, to host this meeting here at Village Hall in council chambers with any flood-affected residents so that they can hear directly from the Army Corps and have a Q&A with them. So we're looking to set that meeting up, and we'll be reporting back once we have a solidified date to the residents. On the field side, all of our fields are open on the village side. As a matter of fact, I was watching lacrosse practice yesterday over on Maple Field after work. The Board of Education stadium is open. Stevens will be open next week, and we should be up and running for the spring season. Hopefully it gets a little drier out there, and we're not hoping off any floods moving forward. On tonight's agenda under policy, and I know Councilmember Winograd will probably report on this under her report, but I just want to thank our Parks and Recreation Department and our Shade Tree Commission for finally moving forward with a substantive program on the big tree nomination process through the DEP. There is a request on tonight's agenda from Parks and Recreation to identify 6 big trees in the village and seek the council's authorization at our next public meeting for me to sign the right of access agreement to make those nominations to the Department of Environmental Protection. Also on tonight's agenda is authorization for our 2024 road resurfacing bid award. We will be resurfacing between some of the streets that are carryovers from last year, plus the streets this year, close to 40 roads in the village that are village roads. That's not including Ackerman Avenue, which is slated to be paved by Bergen County, in addition to all of the streets that are affected by PSE&G with the gas replacement lines. Those streets are on top of the 40 village streets that are slated between the 23 and the 24 road program to be paved this year. So we're looking forward to that. And finally, just got word this afternoon that our My Services lookup on our website has been relaunched. When we moved over from our old website to our new website, the vendor who provided that lookup was no longer, I guess, in business or able to sustain it for us. So our IT department, and Gabriella, who's actually running our council meeting tonight in the back room there, she, with the help of Dylan Hansen, our IT director, were able to rebuild the village lookup process for garbage, recycling services, and anything that's associated with Sean Hamlin's operation. So if you go on and you click on the garbage and recycling tab on the new village website, you can type your address in and all your collection dates will populate, and you'll know exactly when to put things curbside or expect our solid waste folks to come and collect your garbage. So that is all I have tonight, Mayor. I do have a couple of announcements, if you'll indulge me. This Friday, Village Hall, March 29th, will be closed in observance of Good Friday. There'll be no garbage or recycling pickup on that day, and the recycling center will be closed. Easter in the Park, sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce at Van Ness Square, will be held on Saturday, March 30th from 11 to 2. If you'd like more information on that, you can contact the Chamber of Commerce. Online registration for Graydon Pool and tennis pickleball badges begins on April 1st. You can register through Community Pass. Pre-season badge distribution or in-person assistance will be available Monday through Friday at the stable from 8:30 to 4:30 and in person at the Graydon Badge office on Saturday, May 11th and May 18th from 10 to 12 at Graydon Pool. Summer day camp registration will open up on April 1st at 8:30 through Community Pass. The Village Shred Day will be held on Saturday, April 6th from 8 to 12 or until the truck is full at the Graydon Pool parking lot. Limit of 5 boxes or limit of 5 boxes or paper bags per vehicle. Please do not bring any of your shredding in plastic bags. The Ridgewood Baseball Softball Association Opening Day Parade will be held on Saturday, April 20th. Parade will begin at 9 a.m. at the Ridgewood Ave train station and continue down Ridgewood Ave to Maple Avenue and end at Veterans Field. The 2024 Daffodil Festival and Earth Day Fair will take place on Sunday, April 21st at Memorial Park, Van Ness Square from 11 to 2:30. Please come and enjoy the day. Village Council upcoming meetings: April 3rd work session, April 10th public meeting, April 24th work session. All those meetings begin at 7:30. And that concludes my report, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Keith. And let's go to council reports. Siobhan.
Sure. So congratulations on the lookup, and thank you, IT. It is the little things. People love their information, and I just want to say how incredibly grateful I am to the communications team and everybody who made these features happen. It's super exciting. So
Jeannie at Streets is the happiest employee I have right now.
And just remember, because of Good Friday, the whole schedule is different. I have to leave this meeting and take my recycling out tonight. I wanted to begin with Shade Tree. Shade Tree is very excited to be focused on the Somerville area. We're launching our new campaign this coming week where we have the Somerville leopard sitting underneath the tree. We're going to be attending many sessions within the Somerville community in school, getting the kids to buy into it. We already have 14 saplings adopted, which is pretty cool. I would encourage anybody within Somerville to adopt a sapling, as well as, if you don't live in Somerville, encourage your friends there to do it. Amplify it when you see our content. Please talk it up. Our goal is to get 100 of them in the ground, which will make us pretty much like on target with where we need to be to address our 10-year plan. I also had a meeting with Pride. Pride is going to be June 1st, and it's coming together very nicely. We are going to have a series of speakers and entertainers, and if anyone is interested in participating in Pride Day, it's June 1st from 1 to 2 in the park. I want to thank our students who generated the artwork that we're going to be releasing, a little sneak preview with my handwriting. So we're thankful to everybody at the high school and on the committee. And again, it's June 1st. If anybody has any ideas, please let me know. On March 15th, with respect to access, we hosted the Kiwanis Club. So Kiwanis is a new formed chapter, and they started a Key Club at the high school. So just fun fact, Rotary is to interact the way Kiwanis is to Key. And you'll remember that because I just told you that, and it took me a while to figure out. So we're very grateful to Kiwanis. The Key Club will be officially launched, and we've picked up a lot of student interest, and I've spoken about this, about doing more with respect to access. We've had some things show up, and we're planning on many more. We did just last week hire our first intern, MJ Aguilar, expressly for access and other things. So if anyone has any additional ideas, please let us know. We will be creating a new logo because access is logo-less, and we're hoping that it's inclusive and represents the spectrum of disability that affects our community. I wanted to thank my friend Mahmoud Hamza for a lovely time at the Iftar where he traded up from Village Hall and accepted. Last year it was here in the basement, and it was a lovely event with no windows. And
Not the basement.
it was the basement. And it was very lovely. And when the YMCA offered this beautiful room with lovely windows and a special prayer room, they went there. It was great to be amongst people. I met a lot of new people, and I just want to say thank you very much to him for always including this council, and I was very pleased to be there. Circling back to the interns, we also have picked up another young intern who is interested in talking about our social media analytics and one of my favorite words, Instagrammable locations throughout our town, our parks, and community. And effectively an Instagram location, because so many of the younger population loves to take pictures. You know, the prime example would be in Asbury Park. Welcome to Asbury. We are lacking in public art and Instagrammable, drawable locations. So we have partnered with some students at Ridgewood High School who are smarter than everybody, and they're going to be working on this project as well and looking to see how we can increase our engagement in a positive, productive, meaningful way, not only with the community, but particularly with the younger demographic. So thank you to my interns. They they make everything happen. I love them. I wanted to also, while we were on the student side, thank Samantha Sabatel and the Ridgewood High School Democrats Club, who held the first ever rally for Women's History Month centered on domestic violence. It was a wonderful event. The color for domestic violence is purple, and the girls and one boy that were on the committee had probably about 100 kids out on the front lawn to create an awareness about this. Domestic violence is so prevalent. The month of February is called Teen Dating Violence. 1 in 3 women will be a victim of domestic violence at some point in their life, and it takes upon average 7 times for a woman to leave that situation. The statistics were somewhat stunning. I think it was very important for the age that they positioned to, hear it. I want to thank the special speaker who was a survivor from the Center of Hope and Safety, and I would encourage everybody to attend any of these efforts at our high school. Our kids are amazing. They really take this very seriously. They're really beginning to realize that their demographic, the more they know before they hit that prime age in college, where they're likely to be a victim or witness victimization, is incredibly important. So thank you to them, and I'm very grateful for any type of activism that creates an awareness about safety amongst men and women. We had a Parks and Rec meeting. Sorry, I have a lot of meetings. Last night, it went very well, and to address the public comment, we are working on a joint effort with Open Space to address our to-do list from the master plan. That to-do list is long, and as Pam said, we've had some thankfully positive things turn out, but we've been delayed about 2 months with that joint meeting. Our next meeting is going to be a week early. I want to highlight, because of Passover, we will not be holding it on our typical night. It will be on the 16th, and we're going to cover a bulk of the park stuff when we go over the line items. And then lastly, this is very exciting. If I've lost you, tap back in. As many people know, we have a long-standing diversion, because when I was a student at Orchard School, there was a park on Broad Street, and through no ill will, that park was improperly taken. And during a park survey with Green Acres, it was determined that we had improperly taken a park, which is a really bad thing, and it created something called the diversion. So we have, in good faith, Ridgewood's always acted in good faith to acquire parkland. We've worked endlessly, and I wish Heather was here. Heather's done a lot of this to clear this diversion. And the diversion, how I explain it, puts Ridgewood in an unfortunate park timeout, meaning our funding is frozen, it's a pipeline of cash, and we are less grant worthy because it's a really bad thing to take a park. So I'm going to give you ish numbers, like it's around that. There's an outstanding balance of 300,000-ish, and that we are going to receive 2/3 of that this year, which will go to offset the debt services on Habernickel. There will be a remaining balance left that we are going to clear, fingers crossed, before the end of the year, and that will clear the diversion from when I was in 2nd grade, and I am no longer anywhere near 2nd grade, and it will help improve our funding, relieve the debt on Habernickel, and make us more grant worthy. This is a big deal. I want to really thank everybody on every side who did this. I want to just say how incredibly grateful I am, particularly to Pam, who's been so wonderful, Paul as well. And this is so great, and I really, truly wish Heather was here, so I'm going to wave towards her blank space, and I hope the whole community joins us in understanding that this is a wonderful thing for our town to clear and put behind us, and an awesome opportunity for our parks. And that is it.
Thank you, Siobhan. Pam?
Okay, the planning board met, and we heard an application for a minor subdivision with C variances at 229 South Maple. You may know the vacant lot at the corner of Gilbert Street and South Maple. It's been empty for years. There was a fire in the early 2000s, and the owner applied in 2002 to improve the lot, but it then lapsed, and their lawyer also passed away. So anyway, we did adopt a resolution accepting, we voted to approve their application to put two-family homes on that lot, one of which will exceed the height requirement by a little bit. It really does fit in nicely with the neighborhood. Also, we did adopt a resolution on the application of 915 Glenview Road. That's also a minor subdivision, to allow the homeowners to have access to the public roadway. And you won't see any difference there. It's not like anybody's building anything, but it does clear things up, and so that was a good choice. The Open Space Committee has an ambitious program this year of park walks. That is, on Saturdays from April to September at 10 a.m., we will be having guided tours. Each of the members of Open Space will be giving you a tour. So if you're interested for a particular park, listen up. Dunham Trail will be April 27th. South Pleasant Park will be May 11th. Kings Pond Park will be May 18th. Habernickel Park will be June 1st. Children's Sensory Garden, we will have the help of the Conservancy for Ridgewood Public Lands. They'll be doing also the grounds of the stable. Looning Park and a Maple Soccer Field, that will be June 15th. Grove Park, July 13th. Looning Park, Looning Park, nope. This is a duplicate. Okay, Graydon Park will be July 27th. That includes the pool. And then September 14th will be Van Nest Square. And Twinney Pond will be September 28th. So those will be all interesting and educational. The Central Business District Advisory Committee met. We discussed exclusionary zoning, and also I wanted to let you know that Music in the Park is coming back. In Van Nest Square on Saturday nights, June, July, and August, our indefatigable musicians will be playing, and this is really thanks to Andy Meyer and Declan Power and Joe Orienti. You just can't hold these guys back. They love to play, and so do their comrades. It's just they're going to put on a great program this summer. Let's see, Green Ridgewood. The chairman of Green Ridgewood and I went this morning to Manhattan to meet the Columbia graduate students who are looking at Ridgewood's ability to decarbonize, that is, use less fossil fuels, and also to mitigate flooding and stormwater runoff. And they are really working hard. They're pulling together their final report and presentation. And some residents have asked me, are they going to speak with homeowners who have been flooded or whose residences have been flooded? And the students did tell us that they have spoken with 2 or 3 of those homeowners. They didn't tell us who they spoke to, but they are taking that into account. Green Ridgewood also met last week, and we are really deep into preparing for the Daffodil Festival and Earth Day Fair, as the manager mentioned. That's on April 21st from 11 to 2:30. And there's a student art contest that's going on that day, leading up to that day. And if any students want to participate, they can submit up until April 5th. They can bring their artwork to the library. The theme is what Earth Day means to me. And so it can be anything, really. Just let your creativity fly. I also enjoyed the iftar dinner. Every year, the Muslim community welcomes us, and I just make friends year after year. It's such a warm, open event They are just wonderful, not to mention that the food is delicious. Also, blowing my diet, I went to the Access dinner at McMurphy's. Thank you for inviting me. It was really nice to meet those families and those kids. Let's see, last, and this was really moving, the Interfaith Council held a peace vigil on Sunday to address how do we feel about the war in Gaza and Israel. And our Imam, Mahmoud Hamza, and Rabbi Fine both spoke, and it was interesting. They traded places. They spoke as if they were people from the opposite side. And it really made you think about how to view the situation in a broader sense. So that was really wonderful. And the singer at Emmanuel Church is just spectacular. He makes me cry. Anyway, so that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Pam. And I have to comment on that peace vigil. It was one of the most moving experiences. You know, this gig, sitting on this dais is not always easy, but then there were some really great highlights, and this has to be one of them. This was put on by the Interfaith Clergy Council, and it was led by Imam Mahmoud Hamza, Rabbi David Fine, and Reverend Arturo Lewis from the Emmanuel Baptist Church. And Imam Hamza spoke about the plight of the hostages. Rabbi Fine spoke about the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. And Reverend Lewis urged our leaders to find a way to end this crisis now. It was incredibly moving. One of my favorite parts of this was when Imam Hamza and Rabbi Fine referred to passages in their respective scriptures that were virtually identical. And I will be paraphrasing here, that when you kill one person, it is like killing all of humanity. When you save one person, it is saving all of humanity. Incredibly moving, and I left there feeling lighter. And I think it may have had an almost immediate impact, because I believe the next day the UN Security Council passed a resolution on this. I was surprised that it ramped up that quickly, but I'm going to give Imam Hamza and Rabbi Fine full credit for that Security Council resolution. Meantime, I also attended the iftar. Always a wonderful, warm night. Always incredible food. And the access night for sensory-friendly dinner at McMurphy's was great. The next one is tentatively scheduled at Lisa's Turkish Kitchen on April 30th. She will be opening her restaurant just for this event and just for these people, which I think is incredibly moving. I want to thank Deputy Mayor Pam for taking me on a tour of Kings Pond 2 days ago, which I've been there, but not where she took me. It was, for those of you who haven't been, this took me back to my boyhood, walking through the woods, playing in the stream, watching the waterfall, and watching the skunk cabbage grow in. It was really, really outstanding. I do want to comment on Keith's report that we will be paving more than 40 roads this year, immediately after we paved 32 miles of roads last year. We're on a roll here, and our roads will be in the best shape they have ever been in, at least since I have been here for 30 years. And for those of you who are enjoying the benefits of our new website, every time you log on to that, you should thank Siobhan, because it was her initiative, and she and her team are constantly working to improve it every day. It is truly it is a signature achievement of this council that was put into play by Siobhan. So thank you all very much. And with that, let's go to our regular agenda. Keith.
Thank you, Mayor. On behalf of Director Calby, who is out of state tonight, we'll start with Ridgewood Water. We have award a sole source contract for spare part kits for chemical and polyphosphate pumps. This is to provide disinfection and corrosion control, respectively, to prevent bacteria and viruses in lead and copper from leaching into the water system. The system utilizes chemical and polyphosphate pumps. The contract is recommended to be awarded to GP Jaeger Inc. of Boonton, New Jersey. Amount not to exceed $49,134.50, and the funds are available through the temporary budget now and then through the water utility operating budget once the budget is adopted on April 10th.
Everybody good?
Yes.
Let's go.
Okay. The next one is award contract, understate contract for water quality testing equipment and supplies. This is to Hatch Company through the New Jersey State Cooperative Contract. This is for the Water Department to purchase water quality testing equipment and supplies from the state. These items are necessary to monitor and report levels of pH, phosphate, and chlorine required for system operation. Again, Hatch Company under state contract not to exceed $37,032.66. And again, temporary budget, and then once the budget is adopted, it'll come out of the water utility operating budget for '24.
All good?
Okay, the next is award contract under Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Program, various materials, supplies, and equipment, maintenance and upkeep of the Ridgewood Water facilities. This is a Sourcewell contract to Granger, materials and supplies for not only facilities maintenance, repair, and operation related costs, but also for public safety related equipment, supplies, accessories, and services, and for janitorial supplies. Again, it's Granger of South Plainfield, amount not to exceed $65,000, temporary budget, and then water operating for '24.
Everybody good?
Yes.
Let's go.
Next item is to request under bipartisan legislative action for $12 million in funding to mitigate expenses related to the capital improvements for PFAS treatment. There is a memorandum in your packet tonight from Director Calby on this. We did meet with members of the legislature, including Assembly Budget Appropriation Chair Lisa Swain, who represents Glen Rock. She lives in Fairlawn. And other members of the legislature, including our own Assemblyman Chris DePhillips, who represents Ridgewood in the legislature. We also had representatives from other legislative offices at a meeting maybe 2 weeks ago, where we not only talked about the need for supplemental funding to offset the cost of the PFAS treatment centers, but we also gave them a tour of the CAR facility down near the firehouse and the recycling center. This is a request for a state appropriation through the next budget year, and we've asked all of the municipalities in the Ridgewood Water Service area to approve similar request.
I definitely support this. Can I make a few suggestions in the wording? On the first page of the resolution, the last whereas, it mentions a 5-year plan. Can we say a 5-year plan that the DEP approved? I would like to make it clear to the legislators that the DEP approved our 5-year master plan on PFAS.
Okay.
And then on the next page, first line, whereas Ridgewood Water is engaging in capital improvements, I think that's a little bit weak. I'd like to say they're investing in capital improvements. And then the third whereas, which says, whereas Ridgewood Water is actively seeking recourse from the polluters through litigation where recovery would contribute to PFAS treatment costs. That makes it sound like adding. I'd rather say, instead of contribute to, say mitigate or offset PFAS treatment costs.
Okay.
And then down in the last paragraph, the now therefore paragraph, where it says a $12 million appropriation for capital improvements to overcome Ridgewood Water's PFAS mitigation. I don't like the word overcome. I would suggest achieve Ridgewood Water's PFAS mitigation.
Okay. Any objection?
I think those are excellent amendments.
Eileen, do you have all those? I do too, so.
There you go.
All right. And once we revise this resolution, if we could share it with water, we'll go from there. All right?
Good.
Any
Let's move
other
on.
discussions on that? Okay.
Nope.
All right. Moving on to budget. We have a recommendation to award a sole source contract, purchase effluent pump for the water pollution control facility. This is to replace an existing Penn Valley pump at the plant. OEM pump is supplied by a sole source vendor. The letter indicating that is attached. It's not to exceed $19,363. Any objection?
All good?
I did speak to Chris Rudishauser about this, and I asked how old is the existing pump. He said it's 20 years old, and it's been running day and night. So it's worn out, and that means it's really warranted.
Served its time.
Yep.
Okay, next up is to award a sole source contract for risk management tools for public safety, New Jersey State Association of Police Chiefs Accreditation Services, maintenance of policies and procedures, and mandated training for New Jersey police licensure. We have a memorandum in here from Sergeant Ward, who is helping Chief Lyons quarterback the reaccreditation of the Ridgewood Police Department. This was something that was discussed during our budget hearing and that was planned for funding for 2024. And the total cost for this year is $53,124.16. The estimated annual cost is about $21,000, and that will be to do a cursory update each year so that we stay current with our accreditation. Keep in mind that an accredited police department also reduces liability, so therefore there are some incentives through the GIF program that once our police department is reaccredited, that will be sent to the Joint Insurance Fund, and they will take that into consideration as they develop our rate structure for future year budgets.
Do I understand correctly that in the past, it's been our police officers and police chief who spend their time doing all the paperwork to get accredited?
I believe there was a consultant in the past. I don't know what consistency that had, but I can tell you with the new law that was passed with regard to police being licensed under the state of New Jersey, this is now necessary, and to use these resources is even more so necessary.
Yeah, I'm in favor of this because I think it saves the taxpayers money in terms of salary, health insurance, benefits,
Right.
pension. Yeah.
When I sat on the previous Joint Insurance Fund board, when I was in another municipality, there were actually cases that proved out because all of the policies and procedures and rules and regulations of the police department were kept current, that aided us significantly in lawsuits that were brought against the municipality and covered by the Joint Insurance Fund. So there's definitely a lot of merit to this. Okay. Item 3 is award a contract, the 2024 road resurfacing repairs for various village streets. We opened up bids on February 28th. The apparent low bidder is American Asphalt and Trucking. At this time, Chris is recommending a partial award to the low bidder for the amount of $1 million to start the paving work as soon as possible. I'll just remind the council that there's $2 million appropriated in this year's capital budget that's already been approved by bond ordinance. Okay?
On that, sorry.
Go ahead.
West Glen is highlighted on the list, on the top, on the grid.
So
So-
I believe that list, the left column is the street, and these are the
Cross
beginning and end
streets?
points.
Got
right,
it.
of the
So it's
paving.
North Monroe, between
Correct.
West Glen and Waldo?
Correct.
Got it.
Correct, all right? And that exists, the 23 carryover, I can give you that too as well.
No,
That's
that's fine.
not
I
included
just,
in there.
with the sidewalks, I didn't want to take anything.
Understood.
And we might be getting a DOT grant also, right?
We are getting one for North Monroe.
Okay.
Yeah. Award contract under state contract for ammunition in the police department. We have a memorandum from Detective Cummings. This is our annual ammunition purchase off of state contract, not to exceed $40,806.32. Next up is a award of professional services contract for extra work scope of services for the Safe Routes to School Design Assistance to address stormwater management rules. Chris, there's a memorandum in here from Chris. We have a proposal for professional extra scope of work services from NV5. We received that back in January. The proposal is attached. It was sent down to the Department of Transportation, who has approved the extra scope of work. The work effort will be reimbursed to the village by the DOT, and it's a recommended award to NV5 in the amount of $142,970.48.
I'm glad to see that we'll be using permeable surfaces for sidewalks. Let's see how that goes. That's really wonderful. What we also see, this is a result of the stormwater management ordinance that we had to pass last year, and this is going to be happening every year. The state is going to be making us control our stormwater, have it infiltrate into the ground, and cause less flooding. Every year, there are going to be more and more requirements, and this is just the first instance of it. I also want to thank Jeannie Johnson, because this is based on this Safe Routes to School grant. Was $100,000 that she drafted the grant, and I look forward to seeing it fully used and the most sidewalks built as possible. It's more than sidewalks, by the way. It's also driver feedback signs, bump outs, and striping, and it covers several streets: Lincoln Avenue, Orchard Place, Grove Street, South Pleasant, Franklin Avenue intersection, Northern Parkway, North Monroe, Franklin Turnpike, East Glen, Bogart, Cambridge, which has no sidewalks at all. So some of these are first-time sidewalks, others are bump outs, curbing, and replacements. I am a little dismayed at the amount of money that this design change order warrants, but I don't know a way around it.
And keep in mind, with the announcement of the funding coming from Congressman Gottheimer
Oh, yes,
that we
that
discussed yesterday, that'll be tied into doing even more.
Great.
With regard to this. And just on the stormwater management regulations, the deputy mayor is very aware of this because she's been in a lot of the meetings concerning it, but we will be introducing or recommending to introduce an updated stormwater management ordinance in the month of May and adopting it in June so that we can submit it timely to the DEP come July.
And I just
And by the way, that too needs to be submitted to the DEP for review and feedback, so we'll see what that letter brings.
Good point. I just want to echo Pam's shout out to Jeannie Johnson. Really great job, Jeannie, and it's a perfect example. Many hands make light work. I mean, she just did this because she knew how to do it, and she got it done for her community. So being community-based is a big deal. Thanks, Jeannie.
And lastly, under budget, we have a recommendation for the professional services contract for the administrative agent for affordable housing, recommending a contract with Piazza Associates as the Village of Ridgewood's administrative agent for affordable housing. We've used them in the past, and we'd like to continue to use their services. Okay?
Yep.
Under policy, and I will yield to Councilmember Winograd on this, but you have a memorandum here from Nancy Bigos, our Director of Parks and Recreation, regarding the NJDEP Forest Big Tree Program. Nancy has recommended upon advice from Declan Madden, our licensed tree expert, 6 trees on village property, and we are seeking tonight approval from the council with a resolution to follow at our April 10th meeting for my office to be able to sign the right of access agreements so that they can be submitted to Joseph Bennett, who administers the program at the DEP. Councilmember?
Sure. So I want to thank Shade Tree of Highlight. I want to give Kevin and Tim Gran an extra big shout out. I want to thank everybody from our legal staff to our engineering staff who made recommendations. And I want to make sure everybody knows, because it's been my fun fact, that the state tree of New Jersey is an oak. It's a red oak. And so you will see we are on the nominations Oak Rich. We have a lot of beautiful oaks in Ridgewood. So it was, after a while, we were like, okay, we need to get other trees other than oaks. So we looked for a diversification in tree species and height. Declan went out. All the detail is there. It was a big contest of which was the prettiest oak in Memorial Park. You have all their detail there. I also want to add that the Board of Ed, and I brought the book because it's so cute. Somerville, this is their read. And the Somerville School, through the Board of Ed, has signed their own ROA, and they're going to nominate their own tree, where the elementary school kids, right for Adopt a Sapling, will get their report on their tree, which is very exciting, and that's included in this as well. So this is great. We do plan on not only nominating future municipal trees for big tree status, but we are hoping to and have inspired private homeowners for their own. So Ridgewood is on the map, and then Ridgewood will be on the map again. If anybody has a recommended tree, please let us know. You can write me, you can write the full council, or Ridgewood Shade Tree, and we'll go out and we'll check it out. You know, Big Tree does its Big Tree job. It has a greater impact on the environment. It soaks up more water. And when we talk about equivalents, which one day when we get the new ordinance we will, they count for a lot. So they're very important to us. They're also majestic and beautiful. I do want to highlight that the sugar maple, because we did not fill out the initial paperwork for the sugar maple, is included in this, and we asked the independent arborist, as we did. Remember, there was this situation with the sugar maple where it had been rightfully nominated to the big tree with not the right paperwork.
Sugar maple at Shedler.
Yes.
Right.
Sugar maple at Shedler. We're not sugar maple rich. There's less of them. The sugar maple at Shedler, we sent an independent arborist out. You guys have the detail of his report. It's very thorough. The tree status is fair. Like, these are official scorecards. And another interesting fact that came out is the outside age of the sugar maple is 180 years. So that's still a big-time big tree. It's got, you know, DBH that's impressive. But the arborist that we brought in detailed, we were very interested in its condition, which is fair. They worked with Declan, who is our arborist, and the age of the tree was determined to be 180 years old at the outside, which, just because everything sort of goes back to Shedler sometimes, that would mean that the tree's birth year, when it was a seedling, like the book, which is about seedlings, would have been 1845. It's still impressive. I'm very proud to have it move through here. I'm glad we get a say in it. I'm happy that the people in Shade Tree have established a robust process and gets Ridgewood on the map, but that's the big stuff from the report. And this whole packet is about trees. And, my daughter loves Latin. She's quite smart at it, and she loves when I read some of this to her with their official names, their species names. We learn a lot about why our trees are here and where they are. So if anybody has any questions about this, let me know. If anybody on the council has any non-tree specific questions about this, let me know. We are not moving anything forward on Heritage right now because we want to establish big, and then probably Heritage would most likely find a home in HPC. So that's that.
And just to clarify the language on the age of the sugar maple at Shedler, the exact verbiage from the report states that it would allow for an age range from 95 years at the youngest to 180 years at the outside of range. So even if it is 180 years old, based on this professional tree expert's opinion, that does, the tree would have began its life after the death of George Washington. And I say that because it has been a topic and very early on in my career here at a council meeting. But just to put it in perspective, the time of, the Revolutionary War, time of General Washington's death, which was 1799, in comparison to the estimated date of the of the tree's age by the licensed tree expert.
It's interesting that the form doesn't ask the age of the tree. And the biggest tree is on Hawthorne Place in terms of DBH.
Yeah.
And that's an impressive tree, and I'd love to know how old it is.
Well, because you guys, I always say this, he dug holes and he told me how beautiful that tree was. Matt Rogers lives in that neighborhood, and that tree, I went to go see it, and it is impressive.
Yeah.
The other fun fact about Big Tree, just because I'll go, now with the GIS having available information, we ran a calculation with Keith's permission of all trees that have larger than 35 DBH, which would make it, depending on the species, and that stands for diameter, breast height, or depending how tall you are, 4.5 feet. From that measurement, we can find out a lot. With GIS, Ridgewood has suffered a loss of a lot of big trees. Storms tend to take them out. Lots of reasons, shallower roots and things like that in certain species. But we now have a complete and total list of municipally owned shade trees that are greater than 35. And so we did this informational, dog walking. Seamus definitely had a hand in this, or a paw in this, so did Matt's dog. And so it's going to be interesting, because we can go through that list if you want to see that. It's a report from GIS, and it kind of made it easier for us as well.
Great.
You're not going to talk tree? Come on, Paul.
Listen, I am grateful to you and the Shade Tree Commission for the tireless work that you guys do on behalf of our tree canopy, on behalf of our special trees, and as I've come to learn from the Shade Tree Commission, the infrastructure of our tree canopy, which is critical to everything from stormwater management to the shade trees themselves, to the beautiful canopy that they create. So it really is very special, and I will not begin to get into the weeds of trees, because I will then show my ignorance.
So speaking of weeds, let's move on to No Mow May.
Let's go, baby.
The next resolution is for council consent to endorse the No Mow May initiative.
Slow mow.
Okay, so
Last year was
so
no mow.
we're editing this resolution too, Eileen, to slow.
It was a,
You can do a find and replace.
Yep.
we plagiarized ourselves.
Pam, do you have
Eileen.
anything you want to add on this?
Yeah, so what it means is, don't mow your lawn every week, mow it every other week, and give your grass time to flower, and provide food resources and foraging areas for all the insects that live in our town. I think it's so important that I'll probably be doing this all season long, so long as it doesn't reach 10 inches in height, but I don't think a lawn reaches that in 2 weeks anyhow.
No.
So,
I just also want to add, because Frank is here, and for the public, if you're getting a professional lawn surface, which a disproportionate amount of people in Ridgewood are, it's slow mow May sort of moving the conversation to what should be. You're not, and this isn't just because Liam and Mike told me they're not cutting it every week, you're not really supposed to cut your lawn every week. And a lot of the reason why it is cut every week in Ridgewood is because of the landscaping contracts and the way that it works. So I think this is great. I'm very excited, and I would encourage everybody in town to take part. And again, the graphic will be coming out of the Parks Department, and whether you're partaking in it or thinking about it, it is a general idea, to echo what Pam said. You should not be cutting your lawn once a week. You should be, it's on average about 10 days, and in addition to all the benefits, enjoy your time with your family, take a little break, and watch the grass grow. So I think this is awesome, and I want to thank the Green Team and Frank, who's the liaison from Parks, and I just think this is so wonderful, and it also shows that we're listening, because not everybody loved, including my next door neighbors, loved No Mow May. So thank you.
Yeah, Frank Mortimer, thank you so much for the work that you've done on this, really. You've really helped drive it forward. You and Pam have helped drive this thing forward. So, and with that, let's move on.
Okay, moving on to operations, we have a resolution request for the installation of 2 small node telecommunication low power antennas from Verizon Wireless. We have a Memorandum from Chris Rudishauser on this topic. The locations are listed here. One is on Linwood Avenue and one is on East Ridgewood Avenue. We will be advising residents within 200 feet sometime the week of July 24th to July 28th. And this will be similar to the request that was made back in '23.
Everybody good?
Yep.
Yeah, it's just that Verizon objected to a couple of words, and so this is reworded to satisfy them.
Correct.
All good.
All right.
Next and last.
And finally, we have a memorandum from Director Bigos at Parks and Recreation. This is for the acceptance of a donation for field renovations for the municipal and softball fields. We had a presentation at the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meeting on March 5th from President Scott Muller, where he presented the need to renovate and upgrade 5 municipal baseball and softball fields within the village. The fields are in heavy use throughout the year and require renovation to stabilize the playing surfaces for safety and for league standard of play. Habernickel, Lower Hawes, Upper Hawes, Citizens Park, and Veterans Field Southwest Softball are all included in this rehabilitation. The RBSA will work closely with Park Supervisor Matt Andrula, who, by the way, congratulations to him and Olivia on their newborn baby. Yes.
Do we know what they have?
Amelia.
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 Yes.
Oh, that's very nice.
So congratulations to both of them are municipal employees, so I want to extend my congratulations to them. There were 5 proposals that were presented to RBSA. New Jersey Sports Fields of Edison is the recommended vendor, and they're looking for the Village Council to approve the resolution to make these municipal field enhancements. The total donation is $62,350 from the RBSA.
I want a big shout out to RBSA President Scott Muller, to the RBSA. You know, they are putting pedal to the metal, doing the things that our community needs. And again, I'm just going to keep quoting my mother-in-law. Many hands make light work, and the RBSA and Scott are really pulling their weight on this. Really appreciate it. It's a really big deal.
And Mayor, that concludes my portion of the agenda.
One second with the RBSA. I just want to make sure, because we discussed this at Parks, that people understand. In addition to the bulk of 65, the donation is sort of sprinkled through, and multiple fields and multiple locations are beneficiaries of this amount, which is always important. You know, it's earmarked. So it's 18.6 to Habernickel, 14.6 to Lower Hawes, 12.75, this is thousands obviously, to Upper Hawes, 6.7 to Citizens, and Veterans Southwest, which is where the varsity girls play, for 9.7. So incredibly grateful to echo this, but incredibly thoughtful, and many, many, many players, kids, and the female league that plays this summer, ladies, are very grateful for this. So this is awesome. Thank you, RBSA. I know that they could not be here. They sent a note saying they would have liked to have been, but thank you to them.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, it really is important for our kids, and I really appreciate what the RBSA does. I don't know that the village could manage this without them.
Nope. And all the sports organizations, they always come to the table, which is really a big deal. However, I do want to take a moment to recognize Matt and Olivia's baby, Amelia. I'm curious if, and unfortunately Heather is not here tonight because she has a historical perspective, if this is the first municipal baby born. I don't know, Eileen, any idea? I don't remember that happening. So this is, you know, kind of a big deal for us. So I'm very excited for them, very excited for Amelia, so, because they're going to be great parents. And with that, we will go back to public comments, and we got to take her. Good evening, Cynthia.
Hi, Cynthia O'Keefe, 542 West Saddle River Road. I just wanted to respond to, you know, a few things that I heard here tonight. With regard to the application, I tried to look online to the financial page that was on the village website. It's May of 2023, so my question is basically, I know Peter was hired to shepherd this application through to SHPO, So how much has he been paid? And I think you said a couple of weeks ago, Suburban Engineering was paid $2,600 also to work on the application, but how much more? Is there a threshold on what is remaining?
I'm waiting for that proposal. I should have it by tomorrow.
Okay, that's fair. With regard, I just wanted to mention, when we talk about the Shedler property, and we talk about, there were so many plans, right? I've probably looked at, I want to say 10, myself. So I think people get confused. And then when they say go back to the original plan, the heart and the soul of the Shedler neighbors and anybody who's, cared about us, understood that what we asked for, just out of courtesy, what we thought was befitting of that property. Yes, we don't own it, Ridgewood does, but, as neighbors, we care about, safety, we care about the children on West Saddle River Road, the people that walk their dogs, the kids that ride their bicycles. We're talking about grandkids and babies and all these special, our children, our families. We want you to care about us. And so when we say, please don't cut down all of our trees, please put a smaller field there, please don't poison our wells and put turf down. We're asking this isn't like, a frivolous ask, I think somebody who comes and asks for permanent lights is a frivolous ask. It's nice, and sure, I think Siobhan said a couple of weeks ago, they have the right to ask, they do, but we're not talking about people's health and safety here. Air quality has been compromised. I know you've heard this, and I probably sound like a broken record, but I'm gonna say it again. Air quality, we live on Route 17, water quality, forget about just the PFAS. The artificial turf grows bacteria. All of that will end up in the groundwater. And I'm not an expert, but there are so many towns fighting turf. People have said, when we know better, why don't we do better? Let's be Green Ridgewood. We voted in the Green Amendment. Where is my inalienable right to clean water and clean air? And it's not just me. It's a whole neighborhood of people. So I ask you to think about that before you go to bed tonight, and think about our families. I don't think that's an unreasonable request, and that's all I'm asking for. Thank you.
Mayor, if I may.
By all means.
Cynthia, did you receive the letter from Rich Calby about the
Yes.
possibility of hooking up to Ridgewood Water? Because he indicated to me that he had identified all of the private well owners who were in and around the Shedler neighborhood, and he had sent out a letter to them to set up a meeting to talk about the possibility of hooking up to Ridgewood
Yeah,
Water?
yes, we got a letter.
Okay.
I think that there's a lot of confusion right now about where Ridgewood Water, that remediation situation, so
It'll be completed by the end of '26.
I think then we should gather all those people to have that discussion.
Right. I think he was waiting for a response. I think he received one of the 4 or 5 or 6 wells that exist over there. I'm not
I think
exactly
there
sure
were
of the number.
4, Keith.
4, okay.
In total.
Yeah,
But
there are,
he
there
did
are more than
correspond
that
to
because
each
there are
of them,
people
and
down
I think
the-
he only received a response from one of your neighbors.
Yeah, I think people are confused, and, given the whole PFAS remediation, we're, constantly on the search for information from my standpoint, and I don't want to speak for anybody else who has a well. I think that that's an individual decision that they have to make. It's also something people pay for, and so serious considerations have to be made, that they have these wells, they're using them. Hopefully, they're responsibly testing their own water, and that's a decision that, I can't make for anybody else, and I don't know how I feel about it right now. So that's an honest answer that I'm giving you.
But again, I want you to know it's an option. And
Right, I
again,
understand that.
And again, we have a mandate that we have to be up and running with all the PFAS treatment centers by the end of '26, undetectable rates. So just know that, and know that the offer stands to meet with Rich and his team at Ridgewood Water.
Yeah, I think that's
If
fair.
if that's an option for you and your family, to connect to Ridgewood Water rather than be serviced by the well, based on your concern here.
Yeah, I think neighbors should be open to at least listening to what he has to say, and, from that standpoint, make their own determination.
Sure.
What's right for them and their property and their family. Yeah, so, and I know my time's up, but one final point is, again, New Jersey, there are so many towns that are fighting turf. I'm sure if you just did a Google, you would be inundated. You know, these are all many high per capita income, or not even, but just people who do not want this toxic substance on their property. You know, and it's not safe for kids. There's so many reasons why. So if it's just for extended playability, you could easily weigh it and say, people's health is way more, we've got to choose people over plastic. So anyway, that's my final thought, and thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. Denise, you're up. You're on mute, Denise. There you go.
Good evening, everybody.
Good
Denise
evening.
Lima, 319 East Glen Ave, Ridgewood. Web pages, a new web site, yes, working faster. I think the layout is great. I think there's still little tweaks we still need to do. We still have the old web page that we have to keep going back and forth to, and I know there's a cost to that, so interested to understand when that's going to go away. It makes for searching, woefully difficult. I also noticed that the village council minutes for this year, nothing has been posted on the page yet, so looking forward to when this year's minutes are going to be up and loaded on the page. Talking about Parks and Recs, a lot of good things happening there. I think I mentioned a few months ago about North Park, which is on the other side of 17. It's kind of, uninhabited. There's no trails, so I'm just trying to understand what we're doing with that park. I didn't hear it during the budget season from Nancy or anybody from Parks and Recs, and I'd really like to see something get done on that side. Given what's happening with the Shedler property, this might be, another little carve out of something we can work on doing, getting Boy Scouts or something to work on that. Going back to the master plan, just want to remind everybody that we started it in 2017. It was adopted in 2022. It's 18 months later, and not any council or planning board has provided any update on what's been not accomplished, not going to do, or what's been accomplished. But Pam, I respectfully heard what you said, but I think what you said was, we've done so much that I can't tell you, and I don't have time to tell you. Well, I think that's great PR to tell everybody what we've been doing, because it's been over 5, 6, 7 years, and nobody knows what's been done with the master plan. So I really encourage somebody to work on it really quickly and start telling us what's been accomplished, and moreover, what are we doing with the historic corridor near the church and that end of East Glen Ave, because I'm still confused. And I just want to circle back to the SHPO response, and I have to disagree with the feedback and the way that people are reading the response. I don't see this as a tweak. I don't see this as a gentle reminder, hey, check off the box, you forgot these things. And the reason why I say that is the tone and the words mean so much in what they're saying. So when I read things that say, technically not professionally complete, or woefully insufficient, or consider feasible and prudent alternatives, or things like lack a unified, coherent, and cognizant statement of purpose, which is kind of fundamental and foundational. Alternatives must be detailed and rigorous. That kind of makes it sound like, we kind of threw it together. That's not a check off the box and, hey, we've got to add something or include somebody or
Denise, if
somebody's
you could
resume.
finish up.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
so I think there needs to be some truth to what was told, and I just ask people to read kind of what's there. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. And with that, I'm going to close public comment. I just have one response, Cynthia. You said something that kind of hurt when you said anybody who cares about us, implying that we don't care about you. Every member of this council cares about you and cares about all of your neighbors. We just don't agree with the majority of this council doesn't agree with the conclusions that you've stated. That's all. We just don't agree. We care, but we don't agree. And with that, anybody else have any comment?
I have a couple.
I do. Yeah, go ahead, Pam.
Denise, I really appreciate the nudge. This is something that needs to be done, but please bear in mind that we're all volunteers. And the three people on the dais up here, we're working full-time for the village. And we will be working on the master plan progress report.
So I too wrote down care. The main reason this property was purchased, going back to 2008, was to prevent it from being overdeveloped. Open space funds, overdevelopment of Ridgewood, they're real things. It was earmarked. In fact, when we implemented our dedicated tax, dedicated, like can't do anything else with it, the number one earmarked property in the campaign to implement the dedicated tax was the Shedler property. The whole entire community cared, wanted, and saved with that purchase that neighborhood from being commercialized. That's a fact. So everybody in this town cared in their heart and cared with their wallets. Everybody who voted yes to the open space knows that our open space fund is the number one most sharpest tool in our chest to prevent overdevelopment. All the 4 parcels in town, had we bought them, we could have turned them into parks. Of course we care. Second to water, Shedler is the largest capital investment in our town. That means everybody paid, in addition to the open space funds, with their taxes, with capital projects foregone for decades because the project's fully funded. And I want to say there's other neighborhoods that have suffered. When I spoke about the diversion, I live in that neighborhood. My neighborhood, which is next to town, has seen more development than any neighborhood in all of Ridgewood. We've welcomed more neighbors, more dogs, more traffic, and everything. And we couldn't get the diversion cleared. This council is deeply committed and cares about parks, overdevelopment, and restoring value to our citizens. So of course we care. It's somewhat, we're people. Our number one priority capital move was the bridge. I mean, we're doing all this because we care about it. We care about pedestrian safety, and we care enough, and we act enough, and we move money. I hear you, and I too don't agree with it. I don't share the same concerns about turf. And I think a lot of the reason the referendums failed in other towns is because they weren't funded. It wasn't just turf versus grass, it was about paying for it. So when we take those issues, all those referendums across the whole entire state of New Jersey failed because they were seeking funding. It wasn't just an issue of turf versus grass, it was, do we want to pay for it? I assure you I care. I assure you the full council cares, and we're building a scorecard and ordinance and funding after funding of commitment to caring. We just disagree. We disagree about the turf, and we disagree about the size, and that's it. And when we do that, the primary purpose when I sat in on the meetings for the House was to integrate that neighborhood into the broader community. With the closure of Glen School in 1986, there was a sense of isolation. That was a very prevalent theme. The House was there to integrate the rest of Ridgewood to the eastern side of Route 17. Without the House, there is no integration. Nobody seems to want to shepherd this house and welcome the rest of Ridgewood over there. So I care. I assure you I care. Like Paul, I disagree about the two parts of contention. I think the whole community, when they establish an open space tax and pays for it every year, cares. And I think every other neighborhood that's watched development in their parks not occur cares as well. So that's what I want to say. 2, with respect to North Park, North Park is over more on the Glen School side, closer to Glen School. It does have a pathway through it. There is a walkable path. I did an Instagram reel on our spotlight. It's there. It's passive land. It's undeveloped. I just want to be clear. There's a clamoring for passive land to remain, and we have a lot of it both at Kings Pond and North Park. I couldn't see, other than the primary trail through there, much more. And in fairness to the discussion, that letter was written, and Denise Keith did reply back. We all did, and North Park is sort of a nature preserved. I think it's like 2¼ acres over there, and there is a path through it. And again, I'm sorry, you know, sometimes with texting, I tell my teenagers, what is written is not what's read. And clearly that's what we have with this letter. You have one right and multiple interpretations. And I think it's a great thing to tell your kids, right? Because sometimes you write something and my daughter's like offended. My son's like, what'd you mean? And you, in your purest of heart, you're writing something and the person who's receiving it receives different things. So I still think the letter was an opportunity for us. I still think I'm upgrading you now to A+, Paul, on
Thank
the
you.
letter of intent.
Thank you.
And I think, you know, we're in this together. Until that park is developed, the house is not open right now. So I think we all need to get on board with hoping that we can move it forward and address the only two areas of conflict that I see. So that's it.
And forgive me for belaboring this, but you've got my thoughts going on this, but because you know, you make it sound as though we are doing something that by proposing turf on this property that is a terrible thing. The 2016 plan that you advocate for called for not just turf, and I'm so familiar with this. On page 10 of that plan, it called for a specific brand of turf, Cool Play Turf. I will tell you that because I know the varsity lacrosse coaches here at the high school. One of the coaches has been a friend of mine for 25 years. He's been a coach for almost that long, over 20 years. He told me that this varsity lacrosse team that has played up and down the East Coast and all over New Jersey has never played on anything but a turf field. That is the information that I have. So this is not this weird idea. This is what is being done all across the country, and it is being done because this is the type of surface that can withstand, that has the durability to withstand the kind of play that we put on it. And especially here, in this densely populated area where there's very, very little open space. Again, our fields were closed. All the municipal fields were closed for 2 months in 2022 because they could not withstand the level of play that we put on them. And so we do care. We really, really do. It's just something that we need to do.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Artificial turf is an expedient for more play, in the total disregard for our children's health and the health of our environment. It's indisputable that artificial turf contributes to a heat island effect. And again, this is the kind of expedient that will only accelerate the climate crisis.
Grass and the treatment of grass, the broadleaf spray, add chemicals and runoff to our river. The discussion of artificial turf as a massive contributor may be a discussion, but let's talk about grass. Let's talk about what that does. Every year we close our fields twice and say don't bring your dogs or your kids even near it because it's shut. We can't have these conversations this way. To Paul's point, artificial turf is not some far-reaching idea. Additionally, in a very clear way, I didn't fund the turf. I walked into a fully funded turf plan of which a committee made a recommendation. There's been $7.4 million of capital allocated. So the problem that we have, you know, and Evan's not here, and I won't speak for him, but I think he would shake his head, is how the heck did we get to a fully funded turf field and now suddenly we don't want it? Why are we talking, when we talk about this conversation, we end up in Nowheresville, okay? So let's say we don't do Shedler. Where are we going to put these kids? What are we going to do? Are we going to, so that's part of the discussion. Everyone is just so focused on what they don't want, we can't deal with the reality of what we have. I have not heard of anybody saying anything else about where to go. we're just out of room going to the overdevelopment. So I hear you. I will say that we have a green team. I would love for the green team to look at what grass does to the environment. We're doing slow mow May and no mow May because we know that manicured lawns and the treatment of grass is an environmental contributor. It also utilizes water. And we need to not have these conversations at odds, but we need to be able to draw on facts. And we don't have that here. But keep in mind, twice a year, we spray that place and we say it's sprayed, don't go on it. So I hear everybody. I live in a house with athletes. My son plays an enormous amount of sports and travel up and down and all around the country. And it is a rarity to see somebody play on grass, a rarity.
I have not seen any connection in scientific literature between grass and testicular cancer, reproductive problems, birth deformities. I would never let my child play on artificial turf.
So do you think all turf's created legal? I mean, equal? That is some of the crumb rubber, which we're not doing, and our entire public school district, Pam, plays on turf. And we just paid $52,000 to restore turf.
It's wrong-headed, and we will regret it.
And in that regard, we have several turf fields in town. I have not heard anyone say we should rip them up. We have them, we repair them as we need to. This is a unique situation of not putting turf in this one place. We have actually resurfaced Maple Park with new turf, if I am not mistaken. And so, again, this is something that we have been doing for years, we have funded for years, we continue to do, and yet, in this one park that we are trying to build, it has become an issue. But it's not an issue at Maple, it's not an issue at Stadium, it's not an issue at Stevens.
It's not an issue in our budget. We have a sinking fund that we contribute to turf each year. We take all our issues and make them one thing. And I understand that there is different types of turf. There is crumb rubber, which is dangerous. We are not proposing crumb rubber. We are proposing an eco-friendly turf. There are issues, and it's not AstroTurf, and there are issues. But the point is that we, meaning all of us here, have funded the restoration of Maple several times. We put money into the sinking fund, and that to me shows that turf is a non-concern in that respect. I will also say, we don't have any documentation that any of those cancers are from that, and we literally tell people to stay off our fields with the broadleaf application, because it's toxic.
The substitute for crumb rubber hasn't even been studied, so you don't know what the risk is to our children.
We're not
or
doing
to anybody who plays on those surfaces.
And
I'm not prepared to subject our populace to that kind of exposure.
they're already subjected to.
Yeah, and I think
On our three major fields that we cannot function without at this point.
as I said, it's an expedient.
And with that, I'm going to make that the last word because we can talk about this for a long time. So with that, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Siobhan?
Sure. Oh, wait, I forgot. There's only three of us. Yes, I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Let's go.